Lucille Ball was the queen of television for decades, and I Love Lucy in particular is the show that I love from her career. She's been in so many amazing movies and television shows, moving on from I Love Lucy and Desi and Lucy Comedy Hour to shows like The Lucy Show and more for decades to come, and types of shows that have been in reruns all over the world still to this day. But I Love Lucy in particular is what we're going to focus on this video, because my collection for that series, which is my one of my absolute favorite television shows in general, and my favorite from that decade, is I Love Lucy, and that's the collection that I'm going to be looking at today. Starting off with the core of that collection, this big DVD box set, this beautiful box here, which has I Love Lucy and the Desi and Lucy Comedy Hour. Says the whole thing here is just 9 seasons worth of content on this one box set. I love the way this box set looks, and it includes 1 through 5 on this larger portion here, and then moves on for 6 through 9, so it finishes up the end of the original I Love Lucy show, and then moves on. Just fantastic. This is the core of the collection. This is the whole thing in one big box set here. But yes, this is one of my absolute favorite television shows. Still one that I watch all the time. Just such an extraordinarily funny series that holds up so well. It's brilliant, and I love the different stages of the show too. I love how it starts off in their first apartment in the beginning, below. Right above, the Mertz's apartment, right above the Mertz's apartment to start, and then before Little Ricky and leading up to his birth, and then eventually the show changed a little bit with Little Ricky's arrival, and then you got season 4 with the road trip to Hollywood and eventually in Europe, and every season is just fantastic in its own right. I don't think there was a single season of I Love Lucy that I did not love, but there were a couple that I liked a little bit more. A few favorite classic episodes, but overall I had 2 favorite seasons. One, probably my second favorite season overall is complete season 4. So I have this special restored edition here, sealed still, of the season 4 on DVD, and I really enjoy the build-up with Ricky getting his first the audition, and then cast in a pilot, and they have their road trip out to Hollywood with the Mertzes, of course, and all of the activity in Hollywood, and it's fantastic. I love everything about this season, and I think I like how everything is within that storyline is contained within this season too. I think if this was just the episodes in Hollywood, it wouldn't be my second favorite overall, even though I really enjoy those. I love the combination of everything while they're still in New York, and building up to eventually the purchase of the car, and then the road trip, and just everything involved with that, and leading up to everything in Hollywood, which was hilarious. And you have famous episodes like Lucy with Harpo Marx. Just a great season. And I'd say overall the season 1 and 3 would be tied for my third favorite, but my favorite season has always been season 2, and I have this ultimate Blu-ray edition, season 2, and this, for me, job switching is fantastic. I really enjoyed that. If I had to pick a favorite episode, I don't know. Lucy Does TV Commercials pretty close, but that job switching might be my favorite. I think because of both stories, as you follow both couples. I really enjoy the overall structure of that episode and how it really worked. I really enjoy Desi is fantastic in that one, but Ricky and Fred together trying to do the housework is great, and then Ethel and Lucy doing the candy factory. Famous, and I love the way this is structured, this Blu-ray set, because you can watch it in 2 different ways. It says on the back here too that you can watch it with a traditional hard-on satin opening and closing, which we're all familiar with, but that was actually not till the show went into reruns. And then also they restored the original broadcast, the animated stick figure opening and closings, and the original commercials and things like that, the cigarette commercials and those things were restored, so you can watch it that way as well. So that's really cool with that Blu-ray box set. Then my favorite individual release that I have in this collection is on LaserDisc. I have the Criterion Television Classics release. Criterion very, very infrequently did anything with television. It's pretty much movies, but they did a couple, and one was I Love Lucy, and there's so much in here. It has 2 episodes, and the 2 most famous episodes of all time. You have Job Switching, and Lucy does a TV commercial, Vitamin Vegemin, and those 2, of course, are included on here. Those 2 you would expect. And as great as those are, that's fantastic to have. What's fantastic is all the supplemental material. You have the original scripts for both of those episodes to go through. You have excerpts from the radio show My Favorite Husband. You have commentary, a couple commentaries actually, and one actually by Lucille Ball herself. So those are fantastic. And it also basically includes a book. There's an entire huge segment going through their careers of each one of the main actors and the entire history of I Love Lucy and the legacy of the show up until the point this disc came out. And it really is a several 100-page book that you use your remote and flip the pages, go through the whole thing, and there's so much packed in here. It's fantastic. It really is a 2-for-1. You get 2 great in-depth looks at 2 fantastic episodes, which are fully included, and then you have a look at basically a whole book about the entire show, and it also has a series of clips from a whole bunch of episodes throughout the entire series run. So that Criterion collection is fantastic. And I Love Lucy, I have 2 other releases here for that show in 2 different formats. First, probably the most recent overall, the last piece of the puzzle that I was looking for, is one of these CBS Video Library, one of these collector's edition sets for Betamax. And this one includes 3 episodes from different seasons of the show, from season 1, 4, and 5. They each have an episode here. And these are released, instead of releasing the whole series in a row, these collector's edition Betamax tapes were released based on theme, kind of the way Columbia House did with MASH on VHS eventually. A little pamphlet there, as everything's included. And this one was about Lucy wanting to be a star. So this one includes Lucy does the TV commercial, Lucy gets into pictures, and Lucy's Italian movie. So just fantastic episodes there. We have the famous Vitamin Vegemin commercial, and Lucy gets into pictures, and she writes her name on the bottom of her foot eventually as things go horrible on set. She gets falling down, just absolutely hilarious. And then Lucy's Italian movie, and get the famous scene of stomping the grapes, and it's fantastic. This is a great little collection on Betamax. I was looking forward to that. And I have 2 tape set on VHS. And so each tape has a handful of classic episodes. One of those classic shows that it was nice to have a small little VHS collection of it rather than the whole thing would be a little much. But so I Love Lucy, that is a look at my I Love Lucy collection. This is the whole thing here. Again, she's been in so many great things. I mean, the movie The Long, Long Trailer is another great one. Future series that she did after this, 2 more like Lucy series playing different characters that were hilarious. But this is the all-time classic. This is one of the funniest sitcoms ever made, and it still is one of the greatest. And it's so rewatchable. It's one of those shows you could put a random episode on for the 100th time, and it's still going to be fun. Just one of the greatest shows of all time. It still holds that mantle of being one of the best and one of the most popular shows ever to grace a television set, and for good reason. It's so fantastic. It is a timeless classic, and if you've never seen it, check it out. Check out any episode. I mean, obviously, I suggest starting from the very beginning and going through the whole thing. It's well worth it, and you are going to grow to love those characters. Everything about them. It really is like a foursome too. Even though, of course, you have Ricky and Lucy are the main people, it would not be the same without the Mertzes. Fred and Ethel are fantastic, and there are some episodes where they almost outshine them. Even they're just fantastic. The 4 of them together are what make this perfect. What's really melded it together. But Lucille Ball really is the standout in the show, and she is the standout performer. And the other thing too is she, as a huge fan of Star Trek. Of course, she was personally a huge influence on the original Star Trek, and even getting that third season. So she's important to my favorite franchise of all time, and is also the heart and soul and the greatest comedy influence in one of my favorite individual shows of all time, one of my favorite sitcoms. She was fantastic. She really is one of the funniest people who's ever lived, and is just brilliant. Yeah, this great show. Check it out if you haven't seen it. This is a look at my collection for I Love Lucy.